Let's move on to welfare, which is your big announcement of the moment. Talk us through actually how this new plan to get people back to work is going to differ from what Labour are already doing.
Well, I think we face a twin crisis in this country. We've got a debt crisis, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, but we also have a very, very serious jobs crisis. We've now got 2.5 million people unemployed. 1 in 5 of young people can't find a job. We've got, if you add up actually all the people on out of work benefits, it comes to something like 5 million people. And if you look across Europe, there isn't a country in Europe that has more children growing up in a household where nobody works than Britain. It's a very serious crisis. What we are doing is making it the centrepiece of our conference, a really massive Get Britain Working programme. And at the heart of it is a very big change from what Labour are now the party of unemployment. I want the new Conservative Party to be the party of jobs and opportunity. And at the heart of it is a big, bold and radical scheme to get millions of people back to work.
So what's the difference?
Right, the difference is many more people, millions more people will be included in our plans because we're looking at all the people who are currently on incapacity benefit as well as the unemployed.
But Labour are already
hang on a
those
second.
people.
No, they're not. They've had one pilot scheme. They are not going through those people. So it's millions more people. We want to get the help to people more quickly. Labour aren't helping young unemployed people until 10 months. We want to help them at 6 months. We want to help the people on incapacity benefit immediately. Much more aggressive about using the voluntary and private sectors. Much more aggressive about payment by results. Tearing up the Treasury rules so you can actually use the savings from getting people back to work to reward those who are putting people into work. But and very specific, hold on, one last point, very specific pledges about 200,000 extra apprenticeships, about 10,000 extra university places next year, vital because of the problems we face, 100,000 extra places for FE colleges. It is the big centrepiece of our conference because we recognise the jobs crisis is one of the most serious things we face as a country. If we don't deal with it, it's not just bad for those people who are unemployed now. There's a danger that short-term unemployment becomes long-term unemployment and builds up massive problems for our families and for our country for the future.
But I thought that you were against the reflationary package, the money being put into the economy now, which is sustaining and protecting so many jobs.
What we are against is that Labour's welfare schemes have been patchy, have been incomplete. They've got so many different schemes pulling in different directions. And they've never really bitten the bullet of proper welfare reform, where you've got to get the private and voluntary sectors involved. You've got to pay them by results so they get rewarded if they get people in work and keep them in work.
So
and
how much is this going to cost?
Well, we're taking all of Labour's programmes, things like the New Deal and the failed Train to Gain schemes, and using that money. And there's also an upfront cost, and we'll be very clear in our document that we release tomorrow exactly how we pay for it and where every last penny of the money comes from.
What is the upfront cost?
There's a £600 million upfront cost, and we'll show the very tough and difficult choices we're going to make to meet that. One last point about this. One of the reasons we're able to bring this together is David Freud, who I think has done the best work on welfare, who was working for the government, but really frustrated that his plans weren't being implemented in a proper and coordinated way. He is now working for us and with Theresa May to produce what is a very radical, very, very coordinated plan. And you'll see it launched tomorrow. You know, not by one of the problems is these welfare gurus can sort of bounce around in government, being promoted by one minister or another minister. You're going to see Kenneth Clarke, George Osborne, Michael Gove, Theresa May, all of the team backing this plan and showing how their departments will come in behind it and really make it work.
Can you guarantee that the year's training available for everybody now will continue?
Oh, this is much bolder than that, because instead of saying to young people, you've got to wait 10 months till we help you, we're going to help you after 6 months. And instead of just pilot schemes for people on incapacity benefit, we're actually going to go through this. 2.6 million people, and I think everybody knows that some of those people cannot work and must be helped, and we are a compassionate society and we must look after those people. But many people could work, and there are some who, with some tailored help, would be able to work. And one of the failures of Labour's schemes is that the reward for getting people into work is pretty much the same. So the companies doing it always go after the easy cases.
Right. You say that you're going to radically cut back public spending to deal with the deficit. Given what you've said about unemployment, how many people are going to lose their jobs as a result of that?
Well, we don't want people to lose their jobs, but we have the real danger to the British economy is not dealing with the deficit. The real danger of the British economy is just pretending it's not there. I mean, I watched the Labour conference last week. Hey, this is really important. The Prime Minister said almost nothing about the biggest problem that any British government has faced for probably 40 years. Next year, we are forecast to borrow 14% of our national product. That is twice as high as in 1976, when Britain virtually went bust and Dennis Healey had to go to the IMF. I think it is the height of irresponsibility as the leader of a country faced with a problem like that to say virtually nothing.
So given that,
we are
can I
going
come back to my question, which is how many people watching out there are going to lose their jobs as a result of the cuts that you're going to make? You must know the number.
No, I don't accept the premise of your question.
What, nobody's going to lose their
job? The danger of people losing their jobs is if we don't deal with this deficit. Why? Because interest rates will go up, because taxes will have to go up, because of the debt burden on future generations. The deficit at 14% is a clear and present danger to the British economy today.
You want to come in and cut now. Somebody like Richard Lambert at the CBI says the recovery is still much too weak to take that kind of risk, and you're going to get, a lot of people are going to lose their jobs as a result.
Let's take this argument absolutely head on. Richard Lambert also said about the budget that it did not set out a credible path for deficit reduction. So let's look at, because I think this is key. What the government is saying,
it was too early to cut.
No, what the government is saying is that the economy is now starting to grow, and they are predicting, I think rightly, some growth for 2010. And yet the government is saying they're not going to do anything about the deficit until 2011 and afterwards. Now, why? And the answer to that...
We talked to the government last week. I'm trying to get your figures, because, let's go to somebody else. Let's go to Professor Blanchflower, who was on the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of England recently, and he talks about 1 million jobs going as a result of your cut, and the danger with that and the cuts in capital programmes that you also intend to make of unemployment rising to about 5 million.
Well, I think those are absurd figures.
Why?
Because the danger to the British economy is ignoring the deficit. Now, what we're saying in terms of getting on with it, of starting earlier than the government, is you've got to look at 2010, next year, and start to say, right, we've got to start making some progress on public spending. Now, the government currently plans a £30 billion increase in public spending in 2010. No, we haven't said that. We said we think that is too high. We don't think that's responsible. And you've got to start setting out some measures now that would start to make a difference. Now, the difference between what you heard last week from the irresponsible Prime Minister who wouldn't talk about this issue and what you're going to hear from us this week is we will be quite specific. Not every last programme, of course not, but we will be saying here are some steps you can take to reduce the deficit, to get public spending under control, and we've got to start earlier than the government currently planned. I think that is thoroughly responsible,
right,
because
you use the language of responsibility, and you set out very clearly why you're doing it. It seems to me that you're not taking responsibility for the human costs of what you're going to have to do.
Well, as I say, the human cost is not. The human cost will come as if we don't take action. Go back in history.
I'm sorry. You're not denying that you're going to have to cut in a very major way government programmes. Now, those programmes involve real people in real jobs. They think they're doing a real job. They don't think they're fat or waste or bureaucracy. They think what they're doing is pretty important. And many of them are living around here, and many more in Merseyside and all around us. And a lot of those people are going to lose their jobs. And what I'm asking you is how many are going to lose their jobs? 700,000 to start with, says the TUC. More than that, says Professor Blanchflower, possibly. And have you factored the cost of the unemployment benefit into your plan?
It's an extraordinary way round of putting the question, because this week, hold on a second, this week we're going to be announcing some of the steps we think the government ought to take now to get the deficit under control. And I don't believe in hogging all the announcements. George Osborne will be making those announcements on Tuesday, and after you've seen those announcements you'll have a better idea of how we think the government should start to address the deficit now. And we want to do this in a way that avoids frontline cuts. We want to do this in a way that avoids job losses. So
you can't.
Well, of course,
you can't possibly avoid job losses if you're making these kind of cuts.
On the issue of Quangos, for instance, we have said we've got to cut back the Quango state. That will involve some people losing their jobs. I totally accept that.
Come on, it's more than just a few
I'm making it.
Come on.
No, but the point I'm making, right? What did you hear last week in terms of specifics about deficit reduction? Nothing. From us, you will hear specific points. I'm not going to go into them today, because I believe that George Osborne is the right person to set them out, but you'll see specific things that would help us to get to grips with the deficit in the sorts of areas that I've been talking about before. Now, when we've done that, I think that is the moment to say, right, now, is that the right plan? Does that go far enough? Do we need to do more? Those are perfectly reasonable questions.
So we don't know whether you're going to give us a referendum, and we don't know how many people are going to lose their jobs as a result of the plans that you're announcing.